As you need more information for cervical plexus, it'll be somewhere here. This is sternomastoid muscle. Sternomastoid muscle. At the posterior border of sternomastoid, in the midpoint of sternomastoid. Posterior border of sternomastoid, at the midpoint of sternomastoid, some nerves will come. In front of the ear, greater auricular nerve. Behind the ear, lesser occipital nerve. Transverse nerve of the neck and supraclavicular nerve. They are cervical plexus branches. We have to discuss them now. You're telling this is sternomastoid muscle? Yes. And at the posterior border of sternomastoid, midpoint of sternomastoid, there are some branches of cervical plexus. Yes, one is called greater auricular nerve, supplying the greater part of auricle, and lesser occipital nerve, which is behind the auricle, and transverse cervical nerve, supplying the neck region. Transverse cervical nerve supplying the neck region transversely, yes, and supraclavicular nerve, because they are going to this supraclavicular region. Now, once you say that these are the branches of cervical plexus, let's look at more details. And this is greater auricular nerve, supplying greater part of auricle. This is lesser occipital nerve, supplying behind the auricle. This is the transverse nerve of the neck, and this is the supraclavicular nerves. Remember, a question came. All of them are coming from anterior primary ramus. Anterior primary ramus. This is a question they will ask you. Greater auricular nerve come from anterior or posterior primary ramus? And your answer is anterior primary ramus of C23 will form greater auricular nerve. Now, once you say anterior primary ramus of C23 will form the greater auricular nerve, fine. What is it doing? It is supplying the greater part of auricle and also skin on the angle of the mandible. Skin on the angle of the mandible. Then who is supplying behind auricle? That is lesser occipital nerve. And who is supplying this anterior neck region? Transverse cervical nerve of neck. Who is supplying this supraclavicular region? That is supraclavicular nerves coming from cervical plexus. This is what we have to discuss. Okay, all of them from anterior primary ramus? Yes, fine. Let us look at the combined diagram. What is combined diagram? You remember C1 fibers carried by the 12th nerve. This is the 12th nerve which is going to supply tongue muscle, but it is also carrying the C1 fiber. Where is it carrying the C1 fiber to? The C1 fibers were carried by 12th nerve to some muscles. What muscles? Thyroid and genoid. Oh, you are telling C1 fiber of spinal cord were using the 12th nerve as a vehicle, which is supposed to supply tongue muscle? Yes, it is supposed to supply tongue muscle, but it carry C1 fibers. So you are telling that spinal cord C1 gave some fibers to 12th nerve so that it could supply two muscles, namely genoid and thyroid. This is one thing. What is the other thing? It also gave supply where? To the superior root of ansa cervicalis. So this is the ansa cervicalis? Yes. It is giving superior root? Yes. Then who is giving inferior root? If you say inferior root, then we have learnt it is C23. So C23 will form the inferior root of ansa cervicalis. Yes, inferior root. So C23, yes, is forming inferior root of ansa cervicalis. Yes, and supplying what? Neck muscles like this one. Who is this? Omohyoid. And then thyroid. So omohyoid and thyroid supplied by ansa cervicalis. Yes, they stabilize the larynx also. Yes, they stabilize the larynx also. Now we have to discuss some more details. Like what? Like I told you, there is this supraclavicular nerve coming here, and the greater auricular nerve going there, and lesser occipital nerve coming here. So they are coming from the cervical plexus. So what is this? This is a complicated diagram here. No, it is not. You have to simplify it. Let us do it. See, this is the 12th nerve which was supposed to supply tongue muscle, but it is carrying the C1 fibers. This is C1. It is carrying the C1 fiber so that it could supply the thyroid genoid. But it also gave the superior root to the ansa cervicalis. Otherwise, the C23 has already contributed to the inferior root of ansa cervicalis. So this is the diagram which we already have drawn. But I need to discuss phrenic nerve now, coming from C3, C4 and C5. So you want to discuss phrenic nerve now? Not only phrenic, but one more. Which one? They're coming from cervical plexus, so I have to discuss cervical plexus detail now, and this diagram we have to draw. If you tell this is the diagram you have to draw, you're talking about a phrenic nerve here? Yes, let us discuss phrenic nerve. So as you know, the cervical plexus is cervical 1, 2, 3, 4. Spinal cord. Spinal cord number C1, 2, 3, 4 will give you cervical plexus, and you have known C1 spinal cord do not supply any skin, so we do not have a C1 dermatome in the body. Dermatomes begin with C2. So this is spinal cord C1, 2, 3, 4 forming cervical plexus. Yes. And C1 spinal cord do not supply skin. Yes. And we don't have C1 dermatome. No. So dermatome begins in C2, 3, 4. Yes. Other thing, you have told that the C1 motor fibers, some of them, were carried by 12th nerve to supply muscles like geniohyoid and thyrohyoid. Who was the vehicle? That was the 12th nerve as vehicle. So C1 motor fibers were carried by 12th nerve as a vehicle to some muscles called geniohyoid and thyrohyoid. Also, superior root of ansa cervicalis. It was also superior root of ansa cervicalis. This much we have discussed. Now what do we want to discuss now? Now what we want to discuss is C23. Yes. Anterior primary ramus. Okay. Anterior primary ramus of C23 will form greater auricular nerve to supply greater part of auricle. Not only it is supplying greater part of auricle, see, C23 spinal cord is giving the anterior primary ramus for making greater auricular nerve to supply greater part of auricle, and also the skin at the angle of the mandible. Now somebody was asking, who is supplying the skin on the angle of mandible? Greater auricular nerve? Yeah, greater auricular nerve, but which root value dermatome? Then I told you, purely C2. And what if C2 dermatome not found? Make it C23 according to Harrison medicine. So skin on the angle of mandible is C2 dermatome. Yes, that is the perfect answer. If not found, make it C23, no issue. And what about the phrenic nerve? Phrenic nerve we have to tell C5 also. C5, but C5 is not cervical plexus. Yeah, it is not, but additionally coming. Oh, C5 coming additionally along with cervical plexus now? Yes. So C3 and C4 and C5 will form the phrenic nerve. If you say C, 3, 4, 5 will form phrenic nerve, the total root value is 3, 4, 5, and it is contributed by cervical plexus plus C5 additionally. And what is the major root value? Major root value is C4. Understand, phrenic nerve total root value is 3, 4, 5, but the major root value is C4. And what is phrenic nerve doing? Phrenic nerve is a mixed nerve. It is sensory motor nerve. If you say it is sensory motor nerve, then what is it motor to? It is motor to diaphragm. If it is motor to diaphragm, then what is it sensory to? See, phrenic nerve is a mixed nerve, sensory motor nerve. It is motor to diaphragm and sensory to diaphragm. Which part of diaphragm? Central portion of diaphragm. If you say it is sensory to the central portion of the diaphragm, fine. What else it is carrying sensation from? It is also carrying sensation from pleura and pericardium and peritoneum, which are near the midline, near the mediastinum. It is near the mediastinum. So you are telling phrenic nerve is a mixed nerve. Yes. It's a sensory motor nerve. Yes. Motor to diaphragm. Yes. And sensory to central portion of diaphragm. and sensory to mediastinal pleura, mediastinal pericardium, mediastinal peritoneum. You mean to say peritonitis pain can be carried by phrenic nerve? Yes. Pericarditis? Yes. Pleuritis pain? Yes, if it is near the midline. So if pleura, pericardium, peritoneum is near the midline, that pain can be carried by the phrenic nerve. Yes, it is carried by phrenic nerve. Pleuritis, pericarditis, peritonitis pain is carried by phrenic nerve. That is why the pain is felt at the shoulder tip. C4 dermatome, C4 dermatome, referred pain. Referred pain. We'll discuss referred pain again, but it is C4 dermatome. We'll discuss this later also. Shoulder tip is C4. Pain of this area referred there.